I will surrender every moment of every day. So I had a surrender this week. I had a neighbor driving by, and the neighbor had his beautiful 3 little girls in the car with him and a little tiny white trash bucket. And in the trash bucket was a bunch of insulation and 4 little critters. 4 little baby squirrels that the neighbors got out of their roof, right? So right above the little girl's room, there were these little squirrels. And so they got the squirrels, the dad came over, got them out of the roof, and they're trying to figure out what to do with them. Well, one neighbor says, I have some snakes, why don't we feed them to the snakes? And then they come by our house, and of course, what happens, we come out there, we're like, oh, I don't know what we do. What do we do? And so in looking at these cute little munchkins, you know, they were so tiny and so cute, their eyes are still closed, right? And, you know, they've been taken out of the roof, so it's not like they can go back in the roof. I mean, it's not my roof, so that's not going to happen. So they're in the little bucket, and he says he's going to try to find the vet and see if the vet will take them. So, and he said, but otherwise, I'm not sure, what we're going to do. And I can see that paternal piece of like, if there's any way you could throw me a bone here, I got my girls in the car, like any kind of help here, anything we can do, very sweetly. And so I said, if the vet's not open, bring them back, and we'll figure it out. There's a neighbor on the other side that's a huge animal lover. She nursed a bat back to health, so I know she will save these 4 little squirrels. And so, of course, 5 minutes goes by, and here comes the white truck, and it has the little trash container with the little 4 munchkins. And I say, okay, we'll figure this out. So I take them, not with complete support of the family. I take them and say, we'll figure it out. We call the neighbors, we activate the troops. Anyway, long story short, a little while passes by, and we know that these little critters are not anywhere near their parent. We know that we're in stewardship of them for the moment, and we're not sure what to do about it. But we're looking at them, and we've fallen in love with them at this point. 4 little baby squirrels with their eyes closed. They're so cute. We took the night making sure they had warmth in there, looking up on the internet, what are you supposed to do? What are you not supposed to do? So fast forward the story to the next day. The next day, I get a little knock on my door, and it's one of the little girls. And she says this, she says, we just found something out, and I have to tell you, they're not squirrels. They're raccoons. We found the mama, and we're getting her off the roof right now, but they're not baby squirrels, they're baby raccoons. Now, if you know anything about me, you know that I've spent a lot of time getting raccoons out of the house. And here we are a year later, and I'm bringing babies into the house, which is not really the plan. But here's the irony of the situation. We were with these little critters for 24 hours, right? And they were delivered to us. And we were told that they were squirrels, baby squirrels. So every time we looked at them, we thought, squirrel babies, little tiny squirrel babies. How old are these squirrel babies? And we looked through the lens that they were squirrels, having absolutely no idea, not questioning what they were. So the moment the assumption is raised and we are able to look again, it is obvious and clear that they are not baby squirrels, that they are in fact raccoons with little raccoon noses, not the colors, but they're clearly raccoons. And even leaving this morning on my way to our sanctuary, I see a little squirrel running, and I think to myself, really, Aaron? Do you see how big that squirrel is? And how small but similarly sized the little thing in your hand was? And you thought that came out of that. And it still has its eyes closed because it's less than a few weeks old. the assumptions we make, the judgments we make, the things we fail to see because we have blinders on, or because we look through inherited, passed down ideas, or visions that are given to us, or we just fail to ask the questions. We're taking the leap right now into Holy Week, into this Easter season, and today is Palm Sunday. We have heard the story of the master teacher and the walk from dinner to crucifixion to resurrection many times. And oftentimes, I would say that we tend to look at the experience of Jesus, the experience that the master teacher might have had. But do we look at what he was teaching the whole time he walked that path? I believe what he was teaching was a powerful lesson, and that lesson came out when he was with the disciples. That lesson came out when he rode on a donkey into Jerusalem. That lesson came out when he was questioned. That lesson came out when he forgave. That lesson came out when he was on the cross. That lesson came out in the midst of his conversation with Pilate. It's fun to look at the experience Jesus must have had or may have had, or that this Christ principle teaching in action shows us so that we can look at our own lives. But for many of us, it leaves a lot of questions. Did Jesus know this was the plan and powerfully centering walk to this plan? Did Jesus unfold the plan as he went? Was he good with it, clear about it? Was it ready? Was he ready? Was there a higher purpose? Was he supposed to die? So those are all deeper contemplations about what we believe the lesson is and what we believe the experience may have been. But let's let go of all of that for this Sunday and to dive into something that's really clear. What did Jesus teach as he made this walk? As he made this walk through the crucifixion and the resurrection, as he made this walk of teaching with his community, as he made this walk of starting today on Palm Sunday to walk in with praise, Hosanna in the highest, with everyone hailing palms, laying palms down and going, it's you, building him up. The first step is to take a look at those situations that he was in and who he spoke to. And before we take a look, let's look at the human condition. And let's look at this through the eyes of the human and the spiritual condition. Because we know in Unity we take this to be our sacred text on the evolution of consciousness. You can think of it as the battle between the enlightened state of being and the ego mind, or that it's not even a battle at all, but it's a yin and a yang and a balance and an unfoldment. In the book, The Zen Commandments, it says early Christians widely declared it heresy to deny that Christ had human qualities. Idealizing the teacher is dangerous, it says. It is usually followed by disillusionment when the teacher fails to conform to a model that is our own creation, not his. That model that is a failing model is the model looking through the lens of what we expect, the lens of what we declare and what we say, through my eyes, it should be like this, it should look like this, or what we fail to ask, rather than recognizing that we're all immersed in the human condition and in the spiritual condition. So what did the Christ presence, and we can think of that as the enlightened state of consciousness that draws all energies higher into an awakened state of consciousness, what did that consciousness teach about how to go through this journey of the human condition where you're praised and then you're torn down, either on the outside or on the inside. Praised, then torn down. Well, what the master teacher did teach is that you don't conform to the expectations of those around you. You bring your path and you teach and you stand from your living path. Everyone expected Jesus to ride in on a horse, a war horse, declaring and claiming, taking down the government, saying, this is how it is. But he humbly rode in. He humbly rode in, showing that he is an instrument of peace. And when people built him up for that, he let their opinions be. So that's your reaction. Okay. Praise, okay. And then what happened? They began to tear him down, to criticize him. And what was his response? Okay. Let that be your response. But there wasn't a defending, a manipulating. There wasn't a trying to coerce, trying to convince. There was leaving people with their opinions and their judgments and their assumptions, rather than solving the issue for them, rather than answering the question, the deep question. Because the master teacher teaches that the deep questions have to be answered within each one of us. That the answers cannot be spoon-fed, they cannot be given, that you cannot trust the answers that come from outside of you. You can trust the knowings that well up within you. And every step along his journey, that is what he taught. He sat down at the table with his disciples, and he did what any good Christ consciousness would do with 12 faculties, 12 powers of mind. He fed them. They broke bread and they drank wine. That is metaphysical for pulling in, drawing in the substance and drawing in the life force. So he made sure to feed all of his faculties the life force and true substance, so that they would be as strong and supportive of the Christ walk as possible. But then he gave space for the humanity. He gave his guidance and he gave his intuition. And in a way, he gave forgiveness already for how messy the walk would be. What happens when Jesus goes, what happens when he is taken from the garden? What happens when he is taken and his disciples want him to fight back? In fact, one slices off the ear of one of the guards and he heals it. And he says, no, no, no. Put that ear back. Resistance. No resistance. Understanding. Walk the path. No manipulating. Standing in my truth. Standing in my truth and moving forward. He gives that acceptance everywhere he is. And he brings people back to themselves. In Matthew 27:11, it says, now Jesus stood before the governor, and the governor asked him, are you king of the Jews? Jesus said, you say so. But when he was accused by the chief priests and elders, he did not answer. Then Pilate said to him, do you not hear how many accusations they make against you? But he gave him no answer, not even to a single charge, so that the governor was greatly amazed. So even in the midst of being positioned to defend everything, anything, Jesus gave no answer. Again, his teaching was to give it back. To give it back to you, to say, who do you say I am? Check in. How good is your intuition? How tuned in is your faculty of discernment? Because he is teaching in that path of Christ consciousness awakening that our discernment has to be so quickened, it has to be so sharp, it cannot be borrowed from someone else. It goes on to say, now at the festival, the governor was accustomed to release a prisoner for the crowd, anyone whom they wanted. At that time, they had a notorious prisoner called Jesus Barabbas. So after they had gathered, Pilate said to them, whom do you want me to release for you? Jesus Barabbas or Jesus, who is called the Messiah? For he realized that it was out of jealousy that they had handed him over. While he was sitting on the judgment seat, his wife sent word to him. We've looked at a lot of parts of Scripture. Have you noticed this part? His wife sent word to him. Now, we can think of the wife as being the literal wife of Pilate, your counterpart. We could also metaphysically know that the wife is the emotional side of Pilate, that intuitive side that knows what it knows, what it knows. She said, have nothing to do with that innocent man. For today I have suffered a great deal because of a dream about him. Because of a dream about him. So here again we see another character in the story, a character that is lightly sighted, but that has tuned in and gotten a dream, direct from source, clear guidance, that is not waffling, that is not wondering what to do, but that is in a clear conscience about it, because there is a knowing, not given by someone else, not a knowing that's been manipulated, but a knowing that is deep in the core, a knowing that is personal. Now, the chief priests and elders persuaded the crowds to ask for Barabbas and to have Jesus killed. Have we really listened to that line? Now, the chief priests and the elders persuaded the crowds. What is the mystical teaching here? The words under the words. The crowds were persuaded. They were persuaded. They had the goggles on, and they followed suit. Not pausing to check in, not even recognizing that one day they were sitting there with palms at a parade, celebrating, hailing, going, glory, glory, hallelujah, Hosanna in the highest. And the next moment, here they are saying, kill him, crucify him. One moment, in one state of consciousness, another moment, in another state of consciousness. One moment you think it's a squirrel, the next moment you see it's a raccoon. Part of the human condition we're being taught about here. We're being taught not to trust that, not to trust it if you are the Christ in expression and you are doing the walk and you feel hailed and lifted up, supported. You feel like in the outer universe you see and you say, look, I can tell this universe, it loves me, it supports me, it wants me to win. I'm getting a yes. And then on the next second, you see failure, you see crucifixion, you see everything's falling apart. All I'm getting is no, no, no. What are we taught here? What does that show us to do? To just flip between the yes and the no? No, again, Jesus stands in that space of not answering the question and bringing it back to source, bringing it back to silence, bringing it back to center. They, of course, chose to crucify Jesus. And when Pilate saw that he could do nothing, but rather that a riot was beginning, he took some water and washed his hands before the crowd, saying, I am innocent of this man's blood. See to it yourselves. His blood be on us and our children, the crowd answered. So he released Barabbas for them, and after flogging Jesus, handed him over to be crucified. There's another time we get this lesson of looking inside or looking to the outside. 2 bandits were crucified with him, one on his right and one on his left. People were shaking their heads. They were saying, you who would destroy the temple and build it in 3 days, save yourself. If you are the Son of God, come down from that cross. In the same way, the chief priests also, along with the scribes and elders, were mocking him, saying, he saved others, he cannot save himself. He saved others, he cannot save himself. He is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe in him. Saying, let him demonstrate. Let him do what I, with my goggles on, with my limited thinking, with my assumptions, what I think it's supposed to look like. My ego self's need to know what it's going to look like. Show me in the way I want to see, Spirit. Show me in the way I can hear, Spirit. Otherwise, I will not trust. Otherwise, my eyes are closed and I cannot be shown. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he wants to. For he said, I am God's son. Without pausing, those in the crowd did not stop to think that they may have been the ones called to awaken. That they may have been the ones called to have the great epiphany that he is saved and that it is theirs to see in light. That the illumination and the saving was for them to wake up. Not for something on the outer to change, but for them to wake up on the inside to see it right. They kept saying, he is the King of Israel. Let him come down from the cross now, and we will believe him. He trusts in God. Let God deliver him now if he wants to. For he said, I am God's son. The bandits were crucified and also taunted him. So they're saying, come down, save yourself, demanding proof in demonstration in a way that they assume will prove to their ego that this sense, this hope that they have inside is true. How often do we demand our way? How often do we demand proof? In Luke 23:40, there's a version where the criminal gets it. One of the criminals who were hanging there said, are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us. That's the part in the psyche that asks for the demonstration the way they want it, the way I want it, the way I want to see it, what I already choose to believe when I go into a situation, a circumstance, or life. Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us. But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear or be in awe of God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. Again, others on the path. We see so many on the path that Jesus came across. And here, at the conclusion, we hear the answer that if you look within, if you trust within, if you let go of the convincing, the manipulating, all of the outer conditions, you will have your grand awakening. It is inevitable. No matter the conditions, no matter the actions, an awakening in consciousness is the emancipation and the freedom. People will want you to be more than human. People will treat you less than human. See through their assumptions and their inherited ideas and experiences. They judge according to their assumptions and their fears. Be as the master teacher is in consciousness. Love them anyway. Pray for them anyway. Serve them anyway. Save them anyway. Forgive them anyway. And when questions arrive, direct all aspects of the self back to the Christ presence to answer from source. Take the lens of assumption off. That is the path for each one of us. I close from a passage from the book I Am the Door by Paul Ferrini. Truth lies in the heart along with essence and love. They can be embodied and expressed only when you do not need to be right, loved back, or approved of. To reach truth, love, and essence, you must refuse to be satisfied with their imitations. You must accept. If you accept conditional love, you will not experience the love without conditions. If you accept any form of dogma or judgment, prejudice as truth, you will not know the pure truth of your heart. If you seek the approval of other men and women and are attached to the way they receive you, you will not express your essential self, even when it is called for. Namaste.